First of all, at 21 years old, I became my father.
You seem to be someone who is now particularly risk-averse.
AT&T asked me to appear in a commercial for them. They ran it in '92 through the Summer Olympics, that were the most watched Summer Olympics ever. All of a sudden, we became a national brand.
I'm Ruth Umoh, leadership editor and host of Executive Exchange at Fortune. And today, I'm joined by Jim McCann. You might recognize the CEO from the prominent 1-800-Flower commercials. Well, today, he oversees a sprawling $3 billion multi-platform e-commerce site that sells much more than just flowers. Welcome, Jim. Thank you so much for joining Fortune Executive Exchange. We're delighted to have you. A lot to dig into a very prestigious company. I want to start from the very beginning. The fact that the company is named 1-800-Flowers, a relic from a time when people actually used their phones to call people and not just scroll through TikTok and other social media platforms. So let's start from the very beginning. How did you come up with this concept for a flower business, which has since expanded far beyond just flowers?
Well, yes, far beyond, but not just, and I'll come back to that. My path in this business is simple. I've only had two career kind of jobs. I did a lot of things, construction, working for my father's family business as a kid and all that kind of stuff. But my first career kind of job was in the social services. I ran a home for boys here in New York City, out in Queens. Discovered I really liked that work and did it for a while. But then what I discovered too is, and you work for in the not-for-profit social services field, you don't get paid very much money. Life decisions change how you think about things and what your flexibility is. So my wife and I married young, started a family young, and it was becoming more and more difficult to provide for them the way we wanted to, just in the social services field. So I was always doing things on the side. Being an Irish Catholic kid from South Queens, I had a genetic requirement to attend bar, and I was doing that Friday and Saturday nights to supplement my income here in Manhattan on the Upper East Side. Had a customer, owned a flower shop across the street. And he'd stay late, and we'd chat late on Saturday nights, and told me he's going to be selling the flower shop. I said, "You are?" He goes, "Yeah, I got this new business idea." So I asked him, I said, "Well, do you mind if I come work a couple of Saturday afternoons before I come into the bar in your flower shop?" He goes, "No, I don't mind, but why would you want to do that?" I said, "Well, maybe I'm the buyer." And I just sold a building I had in Brooklyn that I bought and fixed up and sold. And I asked this fellow, Nick, I said, "How much are you asking for that flower shop?" And he said, $10,000. I had a profit in that building of $10,000. I thought, this is kismet. And so I went and worked there a few Saturdays, figured out retail. I think I could figure this out. Nice time to be involved in people's lives. So I wound up buying that flower shop. And that was how I started in the business. But I went into the business, Ruth, not just to be a florist, which of course I became, but to build the business. So I went in, I kept my full-time job for a good number of years so I could provide for the basics. And that everything else I did in the flower business, I could throw right back into it. So 6 months after I bought the first shop, I opened the second shop. And I did that every 6 months for 10 years until it was every 3 months.
Yeah. How long did you balance working as a social worker with working at the flower shop once you'd purchased it?
An embarrassing long time.
Yeah. Why is that?
Well, I think two things. One is it gave me the flexibility with no capital of trying to grow a business, because I didn't have to take any salary out or any money out, so I could just throw everything back in. And the second thing is conservative. I probably did it way too long. I should have probably thrown all my energies into the flower business sooner, but conservative nature, I did it for a long time. I did it for about 8 years.
We're definitely going to circle back around and dig into the topic of innovation. I want to talk about your background a bit. You attended John Jay College of Criminal Justice in Manhattan with a bachelor's degree in psychology. As you already attested to, you worked as a social worker. Are there any skills that are transferable from that work, from your education, that you use, let's say in leadership strategy, for instance, or understanding the consumer?
Yeah, I'd say definitely, Ruth. Those years for me working at St. John's Home for Boys, I started as a live-in counselor in a group home. So I'd come to work at 4 in the afternoon, work until midnight, and then be the person responsible overnight. I had my own room there in the group home. We had 10 boys, myself and a staff. But what I learned in those first few years when I was a live-in counselor, it's changed my life forever. First of all, at 21 years old, I became my father. All the things he used to say that I thought were stupid, I'm now saying. The second group home I worked in, I ran and lived in, was only 12 blocks from where I grew up, and my family still lived, but it was 1,000,000 miles away. It was 1,000,000 miles away because those 10 boys did not see the world the way I saw it. I thought anything was possible, and they did not. And if you went to 100 years of psychotherapy, you'll learn more about yourself living with 10 teenage boys who were tough kids who came from very tough circumstances. If you're inconsistent in any way, they're going to point it out to you in a hurry. I learned a lot, yes, and I learned a lot about myself even more. But in terms of the lessons I've carried from those days, I think about it often. At first, I made the mistake of trying to develop a relationship with a group. You don't have relationships with groups. You have relationships with individuals. And once I learned that, or it was taught to me, that you got to find a way to establish a relationship with each guy and let them know that you really care. And yep, you got to be the rule keeper because they want rules too. Even though they want to break them, they still want the rules.
What was the name of that first flower shop?
It was called Flora Plenty.
And where is it now?
That first flower shop is gone. We had it for a long time. And what happened was, Ruth, 10 years in, I realized I have all these flower shops and there's no economy of scale here whatsoever. In fact, there's probably some diseconomies. And so I thought there's got to be a better way. And so back then, you talked about the dark ages when people had telephones and 800 numbers mattered because calling people was very expensive. So we had toll-free numbers, 800 numbers. The idea was everyone was trying to get you to remember their phone number. And I remember Sheraton Hotels in particular wanted you to remember 800-325-3535. Apparently some people remember it. But they spent a fortune on commercials with kick lines and dances and singers trying to get you to remember their reservation number. And I thought, geez, if you could just dial it on the phone, it would be an easy way to get people to remember it. And I went searching and a company had that number, but it failed. And so I bought the company, what was left of the company, to get that number, and I rebranded our company 800 Flowers, which people thought was a bit silly.
Well, you seem to be someone who is not particularly risk averse, and I say that because perhaps I'm being presumptuous, you might push back on that, but I say that at least from the outset because you say you married young, you have kids young, some guy in a bar comes to you late at night, says, hey, I've got something to sell you. You just sold a property in Brooklyn, $10,000. I'm assuming you went back to your wife and said, hey, I'm going to invest $10,000 into this business.
And she did the eye roll.
What was her reaction and what was your thought process buying that first flower shop? Were you thinking expansion at the time?
Yes, I went in thinking expansion, so I hired a buddy of mine to run that shop. By accident, I made a good judgment there that I was going to try and build a chain, not just one shop. In terms of my wife, she's always been supportive. I lucked out in the lottery there, which is probably why we just celebrated our 50th anniversary.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I don't think I'm a risk taker, but in business, clearly, you're in the risk-taking business every day.
Walk us through how you made your first million.
Well, I don't know. I don't know when that happened because wealth is generated mostly by creating value. Somewhere in that first 10-year period, I accumulated a bunch of these stores and they were profitable. And when I bought the company that had the 800 number in it, I had to muster together all the money. And when I was able to put up $2 million to buy the company, that's when I realized I had more than $1 million.
Yeah. Was there a moment or perhaps moments where you said, okay, this was a period that was really catalytic toward the growth of the business, towards its quote unquote national dominance?
Bad news, good news. Bad news is when I bought this company, I didn't know enough about how the world worked. I'm a smart aleck kid from Queens. I think I figured things out, so I don't want to waste money on lawyers and accountants and bankers and do this due diligence thing. I'll do negligence. And so I wound up buying the company and signed for all of its responsibilities personally. Not a smart move, because it turned out there was another $7 million in debt that existed that nobody knew about, because there were no employees left in the company at that point. And that was a very deep hole. So that was very bad news, crushing. But the good side of that was, if I was going to dig out of this hole, we had to take chances. and we had to do things creatively. So 86, I bought that company, changed the name of our company, including the stores, to 800 Flowers. Had to sell the stores because I needed capital, and I didn't know how else to get it. So I became a franchisor then when we sold our stores off to franchisees, who, by the way, were much better operators anyway on a one-store or two-store basis than we were trying to operate 40 of them. And AT&T asked me to appear in a commercial for them, and I did, and it was supposed to run for a week, and they called me back and said that the spot that I did for them was the best tested spot they'd had in years. Would I mind if they ran the spot more? So it was free advertising for 1-800-Flowers. And so they ran it, and they ran it in 92, I guess it was, through the Summer Olympics that were the most watched Summer Olympics ever, and it ran 3 times a night during the Olympics. So it was this huge good fortune and branding event for us at 1-800-Flowers. All of a sudden we became a national brand. We didn't spend any money to do that. So it sensitized me and my younger brother Chris, who had now just joined me in business after he graduated from college. And we realized that if we could become a national brand, not knowing anything, not being particularly smart, but being dogged and determined, then someone could replace us with the next technology. So it sort of changed, rooted in our DNA, the idea that innovation can really matter. And if we didn't stay on our game, someone else was going to grab the next innovation and push us aside.
I want to go back to your company's inception. You start with one brick and mortar store on First Avenue. How soon after did you expand to other brick and mortar stores? And by the time, let's say, you got the 1-800 number, how many did you have in total?
Well, we opened up on April 1st, took over ownership April 1st of 1976, 25 years before you were born. It was the fall of that year, so 6 months later we opened a second shop de novo, and that one was in Staten Island. And we just kept opening shops until I think we peaked at 40 of our shops, until we started selling them back to our franchisees.
Do you own any brick and mortar stores now?
We do, not a lot, because this is a tough business and it's better run by individuals.
A tough business how?
It's got peaks and valleys in it. So there's a reason why flower shops tend to be family businesses. No one else is stupid enough to work that hard besides family members. So we have a company-owned store near our headquarters on Long Island. We have cookie stores, we have some chocolate stores, so we have a handful of stores around the country.
Yeah. Well, I am slightly disappointed you didn't come here with flowers for me, I must say.
You know, I'm a little annoyed at that too.
Well, let me ask you this. We talked about this at the top of this conversation. You still have this name, 1-800-Flowers. Now it's 1-800-Flowers.com. Why not completely rebrand, especially as you enter the digital age? You did talk about innovation.
What would you suggest?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't know. Maybe just flowers.com.
Well, we have flowers.com.
You do?
We do. And it points to our site. And that's probably the most proximate of what we would consider doing. But then you have this issue. Very few brands ever get to the level of awareness and recognition that 1-800-Flowers.com is at. Do you throw that out? Do you plan to catch lightning in a bottle again? And so it's a question we're asked frequently, and my feeling is it doesn't mean what it used to. People still call us, and we have thousands of people who answer the phones every day across our different brands. But when you get to the point where you have a brand that is that well known, why change it just because you do a lot of things now?
Are you able to share how you made your first $1 billion?
Sure, it's brick on brick.
Yeah.
For us, it's continuing to build a portfolio of brands, making yourself more convenient so people can act on their thoughtfulness very conveniently. And the mobile device was the way that really catapulted us. And mobile's completely revolutionized our business. And that's when we crossed the $1 billion threshold. When, hey, if you were in the back of an Uber and you just came from a great meeting with Ruth and you wanted to say thanks to her and say, geez, I'd like to send her I want to send her a bouquet. Well, now instead of having to wait till you get the office or open up your laptop and go in through your PC, you have this mobile device in your hand now. You can just go click on her app and with voice interactivity say, I'd like to send Ruth a bouquet of flowers. Here's what I'd like to say on the card, and you're done. So that's when mobile really kicked in. That's when we crossed the $1 billion threshold.
How are you capturing the Gen Z audience, the millennial audience? I'm assuming, and I hope I'm not being presumptuous here, that your current consumer demographic skews older, let's say older millennials and above. How are you tapping into the younger generation?
I think the same way we have all along. It's about having the right products that people want. That would be for us important to have the right entry-level price points. And that's something we work hard on all the time. It's not easy because you have built-in costs that make things more expensive than you'd like them to be. But merchandising is the key. So I'll give you for instance, on the flower side of things, I said to a group of our florists that were in from all over the country, and they were in our building, and we have a design center on a ground floor, and they were working on new ideas, and it's a great excuse to get people in from around the country and share ideas. And I said, Jerry Rosalia, who is a fellow who worked with us for decades, we bought his flower shop in Brooklyn from him in the early 1980s because he had a bad heart. Then he worked another 40 years with us. So who's the fool there, He just passed in his 90s, a wonderful man. But I said, Jerry taught me how to make a floral arrangement that we called the poodle. It looked like a French poodle, and it was made out of flowers. I said, I challenge you to contemporize that and create a product that looks like a dog, but it doesn't have to be a poodle. And I came back in the afternoon, and they had the finalists. They had each worked on it separately to come back. And I had two ladies with me who worked in marketing department. And one of them looked at what became the winner, and she said, oh, that's Adorgable. I said, that's it. So we took that arrangement, we branded it the Adorgable, and it's a huge seller, particularly with young folks.
Well, I also must say it's very Instagrammable.
Yes, it is.
So we talked about innovation at the top of this conversation. Was there ever a period you had to adapt when you thought you wouldn't make it, or where there was, new technological innovation, massive disruption to your business?
Lots of times.
Yeah.
And so my brother Chris and I call them the different waves we've gone through. First wave for us was stores. Second wave was the 800 number and changing a company name to a telephone number, which everyone said, can't do that. And what we did learn when we first changed the name of the company that we acquired wasn't 1-800-Flowers, it was 800 Flowers. But when we changed the name of the stores to 800 Flowers, people didn't get that it was a phone number. So we added the 1 so they'd get it. So the second wave for us was the 800 number. Third wave was this online world. And we weren't sure what to do with our name. How do you do this? Finally I said, let's just put .com on the end and see what happens. And it stuck. So it became 1-800-Flowers.com. Or a lot of people, as you suggested, a lot of people just call us Flowers. But then the internet came along and really changed things. And in 1994, we were on the AOL platform when that was a big deal. We were the first transaction you could do online on AOL. And lots of people came to us just to try it. They wanted to do something online. And they could always think of someone they could send flowers to for a birthday or anniversary, all those occasions. And then, so that was the third wave. The internet really came on. 1994, I started to say, was when Netscape introduced a browser. 95, they went public and changed how we all behave online. And then in 2008, I don't know if you've read about this, financial crisis started, 08, 9, 10. And that was a tougher time. And we had probably 16, 17 different projects that were going on that were for the future, so they were losing money. And when the financial crisis hit back then, we had to pare that back. But we pared it back to a few that we knew were going to matter no matter what. One was we had to redo our technology platform so it would serve all these things. And we also knew that social media was the emerging world, and that mobile was going to aid and abet this change in social media. So those three projects, our technology stack, mobile and social, we continued to invest in those. And so that was the fourth wave for us. And then the fifth wave is one my brother called conversational commerce. And I think that's morphing into engagement now. And I think the our newsletter, which is called the Celebrations Pulse that we do every Sunday, is indicative of that. So we really are in the relationship business. And as such, it's causing us to say, what do we spend our time and our dollars and our technology on to be true to the fact that we want to be in a relationship business and help our customers have more and better relationships. So that's our guiding light in terms of where we spend our capital now.
Where does generative AI play a role in that?
Well, I think that's the sixth wave
Correct.
now. I think it changes everything. And we couldn't be more excited about it. It's frightening, it's scary, but it's exciting at the same time.
What was the thought process behind diversifying beyond flowers? And you've also acquired a number of companies. So what you're thinking when debating what company to build from the ground up or to acquire?
Well, I think it's changing, but the thought then was, if you imagine the best flower shop experience that you ever had, let's say you're growing up in Maryland and you go to Bethesda and there's a beautiful flower shop downtown. It's big and it's got greeting cards and it's got flowers, of course, and it's got chocolates. And what we did was we just followed our customer down that journey. So we merchandised our store with the other giftable products that we knew they wanted or were using anyway. So it started with chocolates and cookies as a gift and bakery products and plush and balloons and gift baskets, which is, what we do on this side of the store is arrange beautiful flowers together. What we do on this side of our store is arrange beautiful gift products, food gifts at all, wine and food and cheese and fruit to make beautiful gift baskets. So it's really a follow the customer journey and saying, if we're going to be in this beautiful strip center or this wonderful downtown, just expand the storefront to include all the things they want anyway.
Is your demographic primarily men? I'm thinking Valentine's Day, I'm thinking Christmas, although I guess you could get gifts for anyone regardless of gender, but what do your demographics look like?
You're on. Majority of our customers are women.
Oh, they are?
And she's affluent, urban more than rural. Yes, when it comes to Valentine's Day, it flips. Dramatically higher percentage of men are our customers at Valentine's Day. But during the year, during the whole rest of the year, it's women on their behalf or on behalf of the household. I'd say the average age now is probably 42, 43, 44 years old. Very affluent households, triple digit average income in the household.
When's your busy season?
Well, we have a few of them, fortunately. Busiest quarter for us is the fourth calendar quarter, which is our second fiscal quarter, so it's Christmas. You have Halloween, Thanksgiving, and Christmas all in the fourth calendar quarter. And those are busiest times. And our food gifts in particular are very popular. So our Harry and David product, and those are popular year round, but they're sold primarily in the fourth quarter as a gift.
You left your company, I believe in 2016, you stepped down. Why is that?
Because I was old and senile. And because I have a younger brother I mentioned, I'm the oldest of five. All of my siblings have been in the business throughout. And Chris, again, 10 years my junior, it was his turn to be CEO. So I decided to become the executive chairman so I could focus on future stuff and let him do what he was much better at than I, which is running the shop day to day. So I became chairman, I stayed chairman, he became the CEO. Unfortunately, he has some health issues and just stepped down this past June. So for the time, I'm trying to fill his shoes a little bit.
Well, you join a long string of Boomerang CEOs like Bob Iger and Howard Schultz who have returned back to their company as CEOs.
It's nice company to be included in. I happen to know both of those fellas and happen to be fans of both of them as well.
Are you thinking succession planning at this point?
Absolutely, always. I mean, that's one of our jobs in management of any level, is to think about who comes next and what are you doing to train them and have a pool of people you can pick from when that time comes. So yeah, it's foremost on my mind.
What stats do you have to share? How many flowers are you selling every year? What's the most popular flower varietal? How many flower varietals do you have in total?
On the flower side of things, it's amazing because having been a florist now for all these years, the variety of product we have gets better every year. Just think roses. When I started in this business, it was basically red roses. Once in a while, you'd see a yellow or a white rose, but they were few and far between. And now there's a couple of hundred different colors of roses, all the different varietals. Some will have great fragrance, some will have a great shelf life. It's amazing. the science of flower propagation. If you saw lilac in New York, it was like a 10-day window, and now you'll source it from all over, so it's much longer. Or the oldest flower known to man is ranunculus. It's the only flower that seems to have survived the Ice Age. And ranunculus was so rare, I mean, people never saw one in person. And now we just had a feature on them. We had a whole few-month program where we had a couple of farms around the world growing ranunculus for us and bringing to our customers for 3 or 4 months when maybe they saw them once in a lifetime, not too long ago.
So how many flowers are you selling every year?
From a sales point of view, between flowers and all of our other gifts, which are primarily food gifts and our personalized products, we do a couple of $1 billion in sales. We do 25 million different gift orders a year.
Where are you growing all of these varietals?
In this part of the world, our flowers come from all over the country. Canada, a little bit Mexico, heavily South America, in particular Colombia and Ecuador. Colombia, for reasons that become clear when you see that they have the savanna outside of Bogota, which is 7,000 feet of elevation, 360 days a year, great illuminicity, fertile soil, good water flow, and a hardworking, available workforce. We put on a big program here to foster more American sourced product, and we had great success with it until the cannabis industry came along. And it became so much more profitable for our flower growers to convert at least part of their facilities to growing cannabis that it kicked us in the teeth, and we took a giant step backwards.
Well, you could start selling cannabis as part of the
thanks.
gift. That you're not going to diversify the
1-800
product offerings.
cannabis?
Yeah.
It's not our
The Cannabis Month Club. All right, well, keep it in mind.
what an idea.
What an idea. Innovation.
It started here.
Exactly. You own I want to pivot a bit. You acquired a 4% stake in the New York Mets. Why is that?
Well, I come from Queens. The owner of the Mets, the principal owner at that time, he and his wife became good friends of my wife and I. The opportunity came up. It was a kick. We sold a couple of years ago to Stevie Cohen, our small interest, but for 10 years we were involved, and some of the greatest days is being there with my kids and grandkids at the ballpark. And it's even a better treat now because I don't have to worry about the financial side of it.
Exactly. Well, any plans to invest in another sports team?
No plans.
No plans at this time. You launched an app. You obviously have your website. You still have the 1-800 number that consumers still utilize. How many different streams and platforms can one find you? And just streams of revenue. How many streams of revenue are you generating?
Well, it varies from brand to brand. So flowers, Harry and David, Popcorn Factory, Simply Chocolate, all the different gift brands we have, it'll vary. But overall, the vast majority of our business is still on our website. Yes, we have thousands of people interact with our customers on the phone, but that'll be customer service issues more than sales, perhaps. You know, if you send flowers to somebody in the hospital because they had a baby, and then you find out an hour after you place the order that they're not in the hospital anymore and you want to change the address, you tend to want to pick up the phone to make that change. So we still have thousands of people who service our calls from around the world every day. The vast majority of our traffic and revenue comes on our websites, and increasingly our app. You asked before, Ruth, about millennials. Millennials tend to want to do everything on an app, so that we see that growing every month as a percentage of our sales.
So what I'm hearing is that your 50-year relationship is rested on technology. Put in your thoughts and your sentiments on paper.
So if there's a power outage, I'm out too.
Exactly. What goes into your decision making when it comes to acquiring new brands? Perhaps we can, zoom in on Harry and David.
Well, in terms of a product mix growth, we're trying to follow the customer. What would they like to gift, and should we have that available for them? So it started with flowers and chocolates and greeting cards and stuffed animals and balloons, so we followed them on the gifting journey. And more we realized that we shared our customer base with another company, which is called Harry and David, who grows the most unbelievable fruit, and they have the highest quality product. And we knew we couldn't start that company. We could start a popcorn company, we could start a bakery company, we could start a chocolate company, but you couldn't start a company where they grow all their own food on 5,000 acres in Southwest Oregon. That's not recreatable. So we had an interest in buying that company for a long time. And finally, a private equity owner had it and decided they were going to sell it. And we got into the mix, and finally we were able to buy it. That was 8 or 9 years ago, and it's been terrific.
What product offerings are you eyeing next? Any gaps?
Yes, in two realms, Ruth. Things we'd like to do next. More and more we're seeing that our customers want uniqueness in the product. And frankly, we're saying if we don't have the product, we don't have to make it. 20 years ago, I might have thought that a company that came out with a nice birthday gift box would be a competitor. I don't think that way anymore. If I'm focused on the customer, then I don't think about who's making it. The other side of the equation is if where we're going to spend our capital, more and more our capital is going to be spent on relationship technology, helping our customers to have more relationships, to invest in those, like we're doing with the AI technology, to make it available for you to come and tell the best terrible dad joke ever at Father's Day. There's no revenue in that for us, but when we have tens of thousands of people come and use that technology, some of whom bought a gift from us too, majority did not. And so our guys say, we spend all this money to make this available, people. I said, you have to have trust that if you serve them, they'll remember you.
I want to end with some quick questions for you, around Robin, if you will. Best business advice you've ever received?
Best business advice would probably be to not listen to all the people who tell you that your wacky idea can't happen. That listen for good advice, but if you think it can work, keep going, because people don't know what they don't know.
It's easy to say that in hindsight.
It is easy to say it in hindsight, but when you're making decisions now and you think back, what would the advice be from that person on this back then? It helps you to contextualize. And the other thing in terms of leadership was, I don't know if you heard of this guy, Jamie Dimon. He runs a little bank uptown here. But he's someone Chris and I are friendly with, and advice he gave me one time, and I think about it often, is he said, Jim, you spend way too much of your time evangelizing. I said, what do you mean? He said, you spend too much energy and time trying to get everybody in the organization to get it. He says, they don't all need to get it. He says, they just need to have the faith that you get it, and that if they do their job of moving things from here to here, and everybody does that, it'll roll up into a beautiful noise, a beautiful crescendo.
The most important question, what is your favorite flower?
Well, there's a year-round answer, I guess, and a seasonal answer. Seasonally, a peony, because they're still, with all the things we've done in terms of the science, they're still kind of rare. My wife is the head gardener at home. I'm her helper, but we have beautiful peonies, and they're majestic and special. But on a year-round basis, we were talking about roses before. I'm a purist. I bring flowers home. I don't bring oftentimes a mixed bouquet. I bring a single flower. And I like to work them and see how long I can get them to last. And I like to work the flowers myself. But I love a vase of roses, all one color, and it gets me excited at home.
I now have a hankering for fruit and chocolate all of a sudden. I don't know why.
Who knows? Maybe it's in your future.